All right, well, thank you, everyone. What I'm going to talk about a little bit this morning, again, is a little bit about situational awareness, paying attention, avoiding problems in the first place, which is what you should all be thinking. A lot of you are probably concealed carriers. And for those of you, obviously, as concealed carriers, you want to be avoiding situations and problems. Even if you don't carry concealed, avoiding things is what you really want to do. If you think about it, you'll win every fight that you avoid, basically. So that's the mentality you want to have. So I'll talk a little bit about situational awareness, just paying attention, avoiding conflict, and then we'll get into the pepper spray thing, which gives you another option, basically. If you're a concealed carrier, you should be carrying pepper spray. Let's see if I can get out of here without knocking out the microphone. A lot of us carry these things. A lot of people I know that carry concealed carry pepper spray. And the reason is, very few problems are gun problems. Lots of things could be pepper spray problems. So if you have nothing between doing nothing and shooting somebody, you're kind of out of luck. So we'll just talk a little bit about that. It's kind of a quick presentation here today. If you're interested in this kind of stuff, you want to learn more, we passed out a couple of flyers. I teach 2 classes each month on this subject. One is a 2-hour situational awareness and pepper spray class. The other one's a 4-hour concealed carry next steps class, which was intended for people that are new to concealed carry. Maybe they're the only ones they know that carry, and they have nobody else to talk to about holsters, about gun belts, about carrying with a round in the chamber, dressing around the gun, dealing with family, friends, colleagues, getting involved in third-party situations. So all that other stuff you have to know. So all the information's on this classes. I teach them every month here in El Cajon on Magnolia. So anyway, we'll go ahead and get started here. Just some topics, again, conflict avoidance, why that's important. A little bit about situational awareness, which is kind of the techie term for just paying attention to who and what is around you. And then we'll talk a little bit about pepper spray and what you can do with it, what it'll do, what it can't do, how the state feels about it, and that kind of stuff. So why is this important? Again, you have the legal right to be wherever you are. So why avoid conflict, or why is that important? And again, the importance of it is you win every fight that you avoid. If you get into a conflict with someone, for one, you're carrying a firearm, so the possibility of it escalating to a deadly force thing is there because you're bringing the deadly force. The other thing is, if you choose to get involved with somebody in some conflict over something, if that escalates up, you can't necessarily control what's going to happen. It may turn out not the way you wanted it to turn out. You may end up injuring someone that you really didn't intend to injure. You may get injured in a way that you didn't intend to be injured. So there's a lot of different things that can go on. So it's better just to avoid that stuff. The other reason is you don't know anything about this person that you're entering into the conflict with. You don't know his level of skills. For instance, you can't tell. There's a guy that we shoot with, a good friend of mine he introduced this other guy who comes and shoots with us now. The other guy is going to be testing for his 8th degree, I think it is, black belt in January. He owns 2 studios, 2 schools where he teaches that stuff. If you look at this guy, you would never in a million years think he has those kinds of skills. I mean, he's always got a big smile on his face. Not a real big guy. He doesn't look particularly athletic or buffed out, but you can't tell what a person's skills might be. Weapons, you don't know if the person is armed or not armed if you choose to get into a confrontation. How crazy is the person? You know how crazy you are. You know what you're capable of doing. You know what your limits are. You have no idea what the other guy's limits are, if he has any limits. So these are all good reasons not to get involved. Is it worth it? Is it worth all that risk to get involved and argue over a parking spot, over your line, placement in line at the In-N-Out or something like that? So again, you have to think about those things. So again, escalation of deadly force, if you're carrying, you're bringing the deadly force with you. You don't have to have necessarily a gun with you for that kind of thing to happen. There was an incident, I want to say about 10 years ago, in La Jolla, in some bar. There's 2 groups of guys in there, and something happened in the bar. They're arguing, so they're going to go outside and duke it out. And the 2 guys go out there, they start throwing punches. The one guy gets hit, he goes down, whacks his head on the concrete, and he dies a couple of days later. Other guy's in prison. neither one of them intended that to happen or was thinking something like that was going to happen. But that's the problem. When you get involved with something like that, you have no control over how it turns out. So again, was your action reasonable? If you choose to get involved with somebody like that, and this is all an ego thing for the most part. You know, we're not talking about criminals attacking you so much. It's the you know, the jerks that are out there, the Raiders fans, no offense, that want to start. I'm not a Charger fan either. Raiders fans are just always outrageous. But you know, if you choose to get involved with something like that, something happens and the police end up there and you end up in court, describing what you did, is that going to sound reasonable and rational to a room full of people that weren't there, just looking at what you did? So you always want to be thinking about that. What I tell my students is CYA. That's what you always want to be thinking about. And everybody knows what CYA is. So it's, can you articulate? So can you articulate why whatever it was you did was reasonable for a person in your situation, knowing what you knew at the time? Because you don't have to be right, you have to be reasonable, is how the court would look at it. And that involves a shooting thing, it involves assault, it involves anything else like that. You need to be able to explain why what you were doing was reasonable. And that's one of the reasons I always emphasize training with people. You should always get into training, especially if you're going to carry a gun. Embrace what I call the lifestyle. I wrote a whole series of articles on that you can find on our blog page on the San Diego County Gun Owners thing, about just embracing the lifestyle and learning and carrying all the time, but learning about what you can do, what you can't do, training wise, just knowing what your skill sets are. I teach concealed carry qualification classes every month, and I'll ask students that are in there either renewing or getting their initial concealed carry, I'll ask them, you know, how many of you guys know your draw to first shot time? How many of you guys that are carrying right now, do you know how long it takes you to draw and get a shot on target? How far out can you do that? Is it 1.5 seconds at 3 yards? Can you do that at 5? Can you do that at 7? And you should know what your capabilities are. I mean, if you're carrying something like this, you should learn and train. The other thing with the training is, if you are involved in an incident, if you do go to court and you are in a case like that, you can use that training to show the jury why what you did was reasonable. Because there's certain rules. Courts have nothing to do with, should have asked Colin when he was here, courts have nothing to do with justice or right or wrong or anything like that. They have to do with winning and losing. And there's certain things you can tell a jury, or your team can tell a jury, certain things that they can know, certain things they can't know. So when they're looking at what you did to see if that was reasonable, again, you don't have to be correct, you have to be reasonable. And you can use your training as an example, like you guys have probably heard of the Tueller rule or the 21-foot rule, where that comes from is Dennis Tueller was a Salt Lake City cop, and he was training officers, and one of the officers said, well, how close do I have to let somebody with a knife get to me before I can draw my gun? And Tueller said he didn't know. So they started looking at it and they started doing some experiments, and what they determined was it took about 1.5 seconds for an officer to draw his gun and get a shot on target. They say in about 1.5 seconds, the average person, like most of you, can cover about 21 feet. So that became known as the 21-foot rule. If you're threatened by somebody with a knife, like if somebody's back there where Rich is and they're waving a knife at me, I'm going to cut you, I'm going to cut you. And I pull a gun out and I shoot, and now we're in court, and you could have a prosecutor, especially in San Diego, is in the courtroom on the other side of the room waving this rubber knife around, saying, well, look, that guy could have never hurt Joe all the way over here, he can't do anything. What you can show the court, or what your legal team could show them, is, well, Joe knows because of his training that that person can cover about 21 feet or so, can cover that distance in 1.5 seconds or so. And Joe also knows from his training that it takes him about that long to draw from concealment and get a shot on. So therefore, Joe's actions were reasonable for what he knew at the time, because that's what they look at. It was about a year or two ago, it was during the COVID stuff. There was a guy in El Cajon that was acting very erratically. He was out in the street running around. They called the police show up, and the guy's around, he had his car there, I guess. And the guy ducks back into his car, he's not listening to the police. He gets out, he turns on the cop like this, and the cop's shooting. What he had in his hand was not a gun, it was a vape pipe. What the cops saw was a metal barrel looking thing at him, and the guy was holding it like that. So again, you don't have to be right, you have to be reasonable. So that pertains to all this stuff, but especially with the gun. So, so got a little bit carried away there. That's okay, that's good stuff. So situational awareness. So awareness buys you time, time buys you options. That's what we talk about. You can see here these people, looks like they're on safari, they're on the Range Rover, they're looking out over the savannah looking for lions. There's a lion sitting on the road behind them watching them. So that's what we mean by situational awareness, paying attention to what's around you. Criminals, and we talk about criminals. Criminals are predators, just like the lion, and they select people and they look for victims. They can't hurt you if they don't get close to you. Like again, if I'm a criminal and I pick Rich back there as my victim, I can't really hurt him from over here. I have to get up there near him. The things that criminals do to get near victims are obvious if you're looking for them. The problem is most of us aren't paying attention out there when we're out in public, and criminals look for that. That's one of the things they look for. It's not that they feel that they can't overwhelm you or beat you or something like that if they're attacking you. They want it to be easy. They want to get in, they want to get out. If you're not paying attention, they can get right up to you, they can do what they want to do, and they can get out of there. If you listen to interviews with crime victims, a lot of times they'll say, oh, he came out of nowhere, you know, he's just there. Well, no, he wasn't. He was watching you for 10 minutes. You just weren't paying attention. They got up to you, they did their thing. So being aware is what you want to be when you're out there. And we look at some things, you'll see people out there in what we call condition white, which is where they're completely oblivious to everything that's around them. When you leave here today, go out in public, you'll see people in condition white everywhere. You'll see people staring at their cell phones, like in this slide. If you're down here looking at the cell phone, you can't see anything that's around you. You can't see anybody that's around you. Criminals look for that kind of stuff. Even without the cell phone, most people tend to focus on this area, like right in front of them. They don't look around. Humans evolved as predators. That's why our eyes are in the front of our head. If we were prey, our eyes would be on the sides of our heads. So you can see this way. You can't see roughly 180 degrees behind you, but that's why your head moves. So you should be paying attention. You should be looking around. One of the things that criminals look for is, again, people that aren't paying attention. They're just like the lion. You're looking for prey. There's another instructor out there that says if you don't look like food, you won't be eaten. So again, you don't want to look like food. So the thing is, you know, you've heard that old thing about the campers and the bear and everything. And you know, you don't have to be faster than the bear, you just have to be faster than the other guy that's with you. So it's the same thing with criminals. You know, it's what you want them to do is you want them to pick the other guy. That's really what you want to do. This data here, and I think this was done, I don't have it down here. I know this article came from 2015, but I think the study was done in the late 90s or early 2000s, where Grayson and Stein were researchers. And what they did is they filmed a bunch of people in New York on the street. And then they went to the prison there and they interviewed people that were in prison for violent crimes, for robberies, for rapes, for that kind of stuff. And they showed these prisoners the video. And what they said was, you know, who would you select here as a crime victim? And these prisoners consistently picked the same people. And a lot of times they couldn't articulate why. It's just they were looking, yeah, that one. And they picked the same people pretty consistently, and it didn't seem to have anything to do with gender or with race or with age or anything like that. It had to do with how the people were carrying themselves. Were they paying attention? Were they walking purposefully? Were they just drifting around? Did they look like they belonged there? It had to do with all those kinds of things. So again, that's why we say pay attention, be aware of what and who is around you, and you know, don't look like food. So we talk about situational awareness as paying attention, and I make a game out of it. Watching people is just fun. It's very entertaining. There's lots of very entertaining people out there. One of the things I do as a concealed carrier is I'm always trying to see if I can spot other people that are carrying. So it's a good way to kind of make it a game. If I'm doing that, I'm paying attention. Watching hands. You know, you always see in the cop shows, right? They're always saying, show me your hands, show me your hands. It's because if somebody's going to hurt you, this is where it's coming from. Either barehanded or if they have a weapon of some sort. The other place to be looking is the waist. If they do have a weapon, if it's not in their hands, this is where it is. It's going to be around their waist. So paying attention for that kind of stuff when you're out in public. Looking around for people that are in condition white. Again, it's fun to do, and what it does is it keeps you paying attention. You're thinking about it. The other thing is looking at yourself. You would think, as much as I teach this kind of stuff and talk about this stuff, that I would always be aware, and I'm not. I'm human, and you know, I'll think like I'll pull into the parking lot, say in Home Depot, sometimes, and I remember one time in particular, I jump out of my truck, I start walking, and there's a guy right next to me. Didn't even see him. I had no idea he was there. And I'm thinking, oh, that was cool. That was situationally aware. What you want to do when you pull in someplace and you park, you know, you turn your car off or your truck off, just glance around. Is there anybody hanging around out there that looks odd, that doesn't look like, you know, you'd expect people to be walking, you know, to their car or to the store, but is there people out there that don't look that way? Are there people sitting in cars? Again, you know, sometimes you'll see like parents will run in the store, their teenagers are in the car or something, but is there a car there with like 3 guys in it or something? What are they doing? Are they watching you? You know, just pay attention to that kind of stuff, and that's really what you want to do. That's all it takes a lot of times, just to avoid things. We talk about de-escalation, and de-escalation is good. A lot of people talk about this. You know, if you got somebody that's all worked up, threatening you, if you can talk them down, that's good. Couple of things to remember: you can only de-escalate people that want to be de-escalated, and not everybody does. I grew up with a bunch of, me included, we were a bunch of juvenile delinquents. We got in trouble all the time. We were looking for parties every weekend. We always found the party. There was always a fight at every party we ever went to, and it was usually started by one of the people that I hung out with. And what these people would do is they would pick somebody, okay, that's the person I'm going to fight with. You were not de-escalating that guy. Your choice was going to be fight that person or run. There was no de-escalation there. De-escalation works if you run into a normal person like one of you guys that's just having a really bad day and you just happen to run into them and something you do sets them off. That kind of person you could probably de-escalate a little bit. But again, you know, sometimes you can't. The other thing is nowadays there's drugs, there's alcohol, there's a lot of stuff involved. When we talked to Sheriff Martinez a couple of months ago at some event, she said about 83% of the men that they take into the jail here in San Diego have drugs and or alcohol in their systems. She said it was about 67% for the women that they take into Las Colinas. So if you run into somebody like that, chances are really good that there's drugs, there's alcohol, there's mental illness, or some combination of all 3 involved. So, you know, the de-escalation may not work. You know, so the best thing again is to avoid them. The slide that I show here, a lot of times when you see these classes, they'll talk about levels of violence or escalation, basically, and they'll start out with like intimidating presence, like if I'm staring at somebody, somebody's staring you down. And it goes from that to verbal, they're saying something to you. From there to physical, maybe shoving or something. To there, then the non-lethal, maybe you're throwing punches, and then to deadly force. And it kind of looks like it's a continuum. And it really isn't. That's kind of misleading. This way it's shown here where you've got the good guy, and around the circle you've got these different levels, and then the bad guy outside of the circle. Because, you know, it could go from an intimidating stare and that guy could pull a knife out, and now you've jumped from intimidating presence right to deadly force. So it doesn't have to go through any kind of escalation. And again, that's what we were talking about before. If you get involved in something, you don't know how that's going to go. The other guy gets upset and what's going to happen. So again, better to avoid that kind of stuff. So some things just to think about when you're in public. Walking on the street, who's around you? Look around. You know, if you're in the city, we were teaching down there, because the other thing I do is I teach project management sometimes during the week. And we were teaching in the city for like the last year, and which I don't like going down there anyway. But you know, in those buildings down there, they got the big plate glass windows. You can look in those. You can see reflections. You can see people behind you and stuff. So pay attention to that stuff. Doorways are another scary thing. And this is why you want to be aware out there. Like where I had to go to get into this hotel, I had to go from the parking lot all the way up the side of the building, around. And so I had to go all the way around the other side of the block. And in the city like that, you've got the big buildings on the side. You know how the doorways are? They just kind of lead in. There's little caves there, basically. And then I've got the sidewalk, and then on the other side, there's cars parked there. Well, you know, if someone wants to harm you, there could be somebody in that doorway. If you're walking along that building, they reach out and they just grab you. They don't have to be by themselves. There could be a guy in that doorway. There could be a guy all the way up across the street standing on the corner smoking a cigarette who's working with them. You're walking up the street, the guy smoking a cigarette just gives a signal or a nod when you're right there. The other guy reaches out, throws you in, and you're there now. Particularly with women, easy thing to do for men are mostly stronger than women. Can grab you, fling you in there, now you're at knife point and you're backed away, nobody can see you. So pay attention with that. What I would do, again, just being aware, is I would walk in the middle of the sidewalk. Because, you know, if there's somebody in a doorway or if there's somebody behind the car, at least they've got to take a couple of steps to get to me. I have a, you know, a little bit of time to deal with it. Gas stations or other, you know, places that are frequented like that by criminals, pay attention when you pull into a gas station. You expect to see people parked at the pump. Not necessarily a car just parked out by itself, especially a car with a couple of guys in it. Look for that stuff. Is there somebody just roaming around out there in the, you know, in the parking area or something? The other thing too is we'll talk about the rules of stupid. You may have heard that. Don't go stupid places at stupid times and do stupid things with stupid people. You can break one of those and probably be okay. If you start breaking 2 or 3 of them, you're probably going to have a problem. But one of the rules of stupid is, why are you filling your gas or why are you going to the gas station, especially at night? Is there any reason to be getting gas at 11:30 at night other than bad planning? So plan, you know, your gas stops. Do it in the morning. It's a little bit better. Restaurants, the same thing. Just when you walk in, pay attention. Look around, see who's there. You know, other people. When I go into a store like that or something, like a 7-Eleven, what comes to my mind is that old, like the old Terminator movie where he's looking and you see all the data coming up when he's looking at somebody. I'm thinking about that. When I walk into a store, I'll look around. Who's in there with me? If I see, you know, say it's an older couple, okay, it's probably okay. A couple little kids, probably not a problem. Young 20-something guy with a hoodie on. Okay, maybe not a problem, but I'm going to pay attention to that one. So, you know, look around. Be aware of who's in there. Parking lots or other things, or other areas where you want to pay attention to who's out there. Because remember, with the predator type thing, they have to get close to you. And remember we said a few minutes ago, awareness buys you time, time buys you options. If you're coming out of the Home Depot, say at night, and you're walking out to your car, and you're walking out there and you see a couple of guys hanging the potency of their batches of spray. If you've ever had a garden and you've grown peppers, you know that some seasons the hot peppers are really hot, other seasons they're less hot. So it's the same thing with the pepper spray. It's just, I know that those 2 companies check theirs regularly, so you know you're getting a good product. The content or the amount of this OC and pepper spray varies from about, let's say, 1.2 to 12.6%. It's about 10%, so it's a pretty good dosage. What it'll get you, what the pepper spray is intended to do is give you a chance to break contact with whoever's trying to do something to you. It'll incapacitate most people for about 45 minutes. So by incapacitate, what I mean is they won't be able to see. Something you have to remember, if they get their hands on you, they can do anything they could have done before the pepper spray, after the pepper spray. They'll just have to do it with their eyes closed. So you want to think about that. The good thing about the pepper spray is it gives you some distance. The palm sprays are good, probably 10 to 12 feet. So I can spray this guy right over here pretty easily. So, you know, you don't want to, you got to be conscious of that. And in my class, I give everybody a pepper spray and then a little trainer so they can practice with it. You can see how it works. So you want to get them within the right range, but you don't want to get them too close. If they get too close, you know, your pepper spray becomes our pepper spray. So you don't want to be fighting for your pepper spray. So you want to think about that. Again, how it works. Basically, in class, I'll show a couple of short videos of people getting sprayed. Surprisingly, this isn't always true, but at least in these videos, it really didn't look like it affected the breathing at all, but they could not open their eyes. These are 2 big burly guys, and they actually sprayed the girl too. But same thing, they could not open their eyes. It seemed like they were breathing fine, just could not open their eyes. And, you know, and it lasted, at least in the case of the guys, it was at least 20 minutes later when they were talking to them, and they still did not open their eyes. So it'll give you time to break contact, which is what it's meant to do. How does California look at this, at least now? So they lump it all together. They define them as tear gas weapons. No permit is required in California for pepper spray. It's got to be propelled. It's got to be an aerosol type propellant. So what that means is it can't be like you'll see if you go on Amazon, you'll see people are selling these pepper spray ball kind of things that shoot a projectile and splatters on you. Those, for whatever reason, are not legal in California. But the other ones, there's sprays, there's gels, there's cones, there's fog. All that stuff is legal in California.
So the ones that they're selling right upstairs, right up there, are illegal?
Yeah, if they actually have pepper spray in them, because I know with some of those things you can change. It doesn't have to shoot a pepper spray ball; it can shoot something else. But if it shoots pepper spray balls in California, that's not supposed to be legal.
Yeah, they're not selling pepper balls there. It's just
so because of the other thing, because they market that as like a non-lethal thing, right? You're supposed to thump somebody in the chest with that. It's supposed to make them
Do you recommend those?
I personally don't, because again, you don't know what the other guy's got. I mean, pepper spray, I could for sure stop it from being able to see. You don't know how the person's going to react to that. It might stop them, it might not. I mean, again, when you think about the alcohol, drugs, the mental illness, there's people out there with bullets don't stop. But that's why you'll see cops where they shoot 15 rounds at somebody, and a lot of times that's because 13 of them are missing. But they shoot because people don't always stop. It's not like the movies. They may stop, but they may not. So shooting them with something like that, which is like the police are used beanbag things, for instance. If the police use something like that, there's always another cop with a handgun. So you can. The other thing with those too, I haven't seen ones upstairs, but they're shaped kind of like guns. They're kind of bigger. So again, you have to carry something like that. And with you said that's another issue. But I mean, there's lots of options out there. You want to do what's right for you, basically. For me, that wouldn't be right.
Yeah, but if you shoot enough of them, because they come 5 balls in enough of them, it should be able to stop someone just because of the pain.
Could be, but like I said, if you watch, I always recommend John Correa. I don't know if you guys know John Correa. Has active self-protection. He puts a crime video on it every day. He posts them on his YouTube channel. And they're real crimes from security cameras and stuff. You will see people shot multiple times and they don't stop. Shot multiple times and they run up in the yards before they collapse. So it may or may not, depends on who it is.
So the kinetic gun, the air gun, the pepper spray, kinetic gun, which would you
I would say pepper spray, because pepper spray will work almost always. There are some people, as long as you hit them in the face, it's going to work. There are some people that are immune to that, but that would be very rare. I tell a story in class. When I used to bartend at a Mexican cafe, back then I was gardening a lot, and I grown a bunch of habanero peppers. And one of the other managers said, well, hey, bring me in a bunch of them. I'll dry them out, grind them up for you. Okay, cool. So I have them in the back bar. And there was a guy at the bar, and he said, hey, are those habaneros? I said, yeah. He said, hey, can I have a couple of those? I love those things. I said, man, they're really hot. I said, no, it doesn't bother me. All right, so I gave him a couple. He just popped it in his mouth, just chewed it up. Nothing. He didn't do a thing. One of my other regular customers, who was kind of goofy, was down at the other end of the bar. Hey, give me one of those. I said, dude, I don't know what that was, but that was not normal. You don't know what I'm saying. Yeah. All right, so I give him one. Throws it in his mouth, chews it up. His face turned bright red. His eyes were just screaming tears. He drank like 2 beers. I gave him a big glass of Anthony. So, it doesn't work with everybody, but it works with just about everybody. So.
Yeah, but isn't there like an expiration date on the pepper spray cans?
They say 2 years, probably less longer than that. But I mean, they're cheap enough for you to just stuff.
So the person has to be at least 10 feet away?
Yeah, probably from here to Craig. It's a good distance, so I would go ahead much further than that. But we'll go ahead and finish this, and then we'll
sure. Thank you.
So again, for minors, if you're 16 to 18, you can have pepper spray with parental permission, I guess, or permission. It's got to be 2.5 ounces net weight or less. That's much bigger than it sounds. I think the palm sprays with 2 ounces or something. Somebody showed me one yesterday that was a bit bigger, and that was, I think, under 2 ounces. So you got that. There is you can get in trouble. This is use of force. If you're not justified in spraying someone, you can be charged. You can spend 3 years in prison, a year in county jail, $1,000 fine, or all of the above. So you do have to be justified when you use it. And again, justify means you're being threatened with physical attack. You don't have to wait until you're hit or until you're attacked. Again, remember what I said before, CYA. You just have to explain why you felt like, okay, I'm about to be attacked, and that's why I did it. If somebody's yelling at you, saying mean things about your mom or something, you can't really spray them. You might want to, but you can't. So, you know, you have to be being threatened by that. So, again, we'll wrap this up here. Again, you can only use it in self-defense. Great for animals. You guys that carry know that, you know, your pet, your dog, as much as you love your dog, the state considers that property. If you've got, like, I've got a couple of pugs, which, you know, I don't have pugs. If they're attacked by a big dog, I can't shoot that dog without getting in a whole lot of trouble, without firing or discharging a firearm, that kind of stuff. Pepper spray works great on dogs, on coyotes, on things like that. So that's another good reason. We talked about the most attackers. When it's not an appropriate response to deadly force, a gun or a knife, unless you're about to be killed and that's all you got. But generally speaking, it's not an appropriate response to that. It can't be used to force compliance or intimidation. Police can do that. You can't do that. So your pepper spray is strictly defensive. Again, usually within about 10 feet. Consider the weather if you're outside. Wind is going to blow that stuff around. You'll see the streams. I didn't, well, I gave it away. If you use the inert sprayer, you can see it goes in the stream. If it's windy, it'll move the stream around. So you have to be paying attention to that. Same thing with rain. So just be aware of that. In a vehicle, the streams and sprays that we use are fine. They're going to stay where you put them. But like the pepper balls, when I used to do, I used to help the sheriff's off-road enforcement team with the EMT stuff out of Locatio. The sheriffs had pepper ball things that they would shoot. One of them got loose in the back seat. Somebody stepped on it, placed the whole car. Watch that stuff. Different patterns, like I was saying, you know, these are all available. These are all legal in California. They all have pros and cons, which I talk about in the class. Time to talk about here. Again, spray the person. You won't try to hit them in the face. Anywhere from 4 to 10 feet is what you're looking at. It takes a second or two for it to start working. You might issue commands, you know, stop, get away from me, leave me alone. If that doesn't work, then that was the last chance. So again, just make sure that you can articulate why. If you have to spray somebody, make sure you can explain why you do. So with that, anybody have any questions or anything?